The Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 11,000 years. Their empire stretched across 3 spiral arms, containing billions of stars and trillions of souls. Every species they encountered had fallen before them. Every world they desired had become theirs. They had never known defeat. They had never known fear. High Archon sat upon his throne of living crystal, his body towering and ancient. His skin was pale blue, almost translucent, and beneath it flowed rivers of light instead of blood. He had lived for 9,000 years. He had watched civilizations rise and fall like waves upon a shore. Nothing surprised him anymore. Nothing impressed him. The universe was simply a garden waiting to be harvested. When his advisors brought him the report about a small planet called Earth, he barely looked at it. "Another primitive world," said his chief scout, a younger named. "They call themselves humans. They discovered faster-than-light travel only recently. Their technology is crude. Their ships are made of simple metals. Their bodies are soft and weak." Waved a long, thin hand. "How many ships do they have?" "Perhaps 2,000. Most are exploration vessels. Their weapons are laughable, kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives. They have nuclear devices but nothing that could scratch our shields." "And their population?" 8 billion on there, small colonies on nearby planets and moons." Almost smiled. 8 billion was nothing. The Dominion had conquered worlds with 10 times that number in a single afternoon. He had personally overseen the subjugation of the people, who had numbered in the hundreds of billions. They now served as laborers in Dominion mines, their proud civilization reduced to slavery. "Send a single conquest fleet," ordered. 300 ships should be more than enough. Offer them the standard terms: submission or annihilation. Bowed and left to carry out the order. Returned to his meditations, already forgetting about the small blue world and its insignificant inhabitants. In 1,000 years, he would not even remember their name. The conquest fleet traveled through folded space, crossing the vast distance to Earth in mere days. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Silence, watching the stars blur and stretch around him. He was eager to prove himself. This would be an easy victory, a simple addition to his record. When the fleet emerged from folded space, Earth hung before them like a blue and green jewel. It was beautiful, admitted. The humans had been lucky to evolve on such a pleasant world. Most species crawled out of much harsher environments. He opened a communication channel and broadcast the standard message to the planet below. "People of Earth, I am commander of the Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. You will surrender all military assets. You will submit to Dominion rule. Your leaders will present themselves for judgment. You have 1 planetary rotation to comply. If you refuse, we will begin bombardment of your population centers. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning." He closed the channel and waited. Most species took hours to respond. They would argue among themselves, fight over who should speak for them, delay and plead and beg. Some would try to negotiate. Some would offer tribute. A few brave fools would threaten resistance before quickly changing their minds when the first plasma lance fell. The humans responded in 17 minutes. Frowned when the message arrived. That was unusually fast. Perhaps they were more organized than the scouts had reported. He opened the transmission. A human face appeared on his screen. It was a female, with dark skin and hair and eyes that held no fear at all. She wore some kind of military uniform covered in symbols and medals. "This is Admiral Wei of the United Earth Defense Coalition," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "We received your message. We have discussed it among ourselves. We have reached a unanimous decision." Leaned forward slightly. "And what is your decision?" The human smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment. "Come try." The transmission ended. Stared at the blank screen for a long moment. He had conquered 37 worlds. He had never received a response like this. Did these creatures not understand what they faced? Did they not comprehend the power of the Dominion? He felt something stir in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it because he had not felt it in centuries. Annoyance. "Very well," he said to his officers. "They have chosen annihilation. Begin bombardment. Target their largest coastal city first. Let them see what defiance costs." The fleet moved into position. The weapons charged. Selected a city called Mumbai, home to 20 million humans. He would turn it to glass and ash. The survivors would learn to fear. "Fire," he commanded. The plasma lance erupted from his flagship, a beam of blue-white energy capable of vaporizing mountains. It streaked toward the planet below, beautiful and terrible. It never reached the surface. Something rose from the ocean, then something else rose from the mountains, then from the ice caps, the deserts, the forests. Thousands of objects, small and fast, climbing into the sky on pillars of fire. They moved in patterns that made no sense, chaotic and unpredictable. The plasma lance struck one of the objects and detonated harmlessly in the upper atmosphere. His eyes widened. "What is this?" Before anyone could answer, his ship shook violently. Alarm screamed. Another impact, then another. "We are under attack," shouted his tactical officer. Multiple contacts emerging from behind the planet's moon. They were hiding in the shadow. We did not detect them. Saw human ships pouring toward his fleet. They were ugly things, asymmetrical and crude, covered in welded plates and exposed machinery. They looked like they had been built in a hurry by people who did not care about beauty, only function. They flew like maniacs. Human pilots dove straight at cruisers, firing every weapon they had. Missiles and kinetic rounds and nuclear warheads slammed into crystalline hulls. The shields held at first, but the humans did not stop. They kept coming, kept firing, kept dying and being replaced by more ships. A cruiser exploded, then another, then 3 more. Gripped his command chair as his ship shuddered again. This was impossible. These primitives could not be winning. They could not even be fighting. They should be cowering, begging, surrendering. But they were not. They were attacking. And they were angry. "All ships regroup," shouted. "Focus fire on their lead vessels." But the humans had no lead vessels. They had no formation. Every ship fought independently, making its own decisions, choosing its own targets. There was no commander to kill, no flagship to destroy. It was chaos. It was beautiful, terrible chaos. When the battle ended 3 hours later, 60 ships drifted as burning wreckage. The humans had lost twice that number, but they had more. They always seemed to have more. For the first time in 800 years, a conquest fleet retreated. High Archon received the report in his throne room. He read it 3 times, certain there had been some mistake. When he finally accepted that the report was accurate, he sat in silence for a long time. Then he declared humanity a Class 7 threat and mobilized the entire Dominion War Armada. He still believed it would be enough. The news of the battle spread across the Dominion like fire through dry grass. For the first time in living memory, a conquest fleet had failed. 60 crystalline warships, each one a masterpiece of engineering, had been reduced to floating debris by primitives who had barely left their own solar system. High Archon summoned his war council. They gathered in the Chamber of Echoes, a vast hall where every whisper could be heard from any corner. 20 Archons sat in a circle, their ancient faces troubled. Some had lived for thousands of years. Some had conquered hundreds of worlds. None of them understood what had happened at Earth. "How is this possible?" demanded Archon, the oldest among them. "These humans have no shields, no energy weapons, no gravitational manipulators. They fight with metal projectiles and chemical fire. How did they destroy 60 of our ships?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A young scholar named stepped forward, holding a data tablet. She had spent the past days analyzing every piece of information about humanity that the Dominion possessed. "I believe I understand," she said quietly. "May I show you?" Nodded. Activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air. Images of Earth through its long and violent history. "The humans did not evolve on a gentle world," she began. "Their planet is actively hostile to life. The ground shakes and splits open. Mountains explode with fire. The temperature swings from burning heat to killing cold. Their sun bombards them with radiation, and their world is filled with predators." She showed them images of creatures with massive teeth and claws, sharks in the oceans, lions on the plains, bears in the forests, snakes and spiders and insects that carried disease. The humans survived all of this. They did not just survive. They conquered their own world. They hunted creatures 10 times their size with nothing but pointed sticks. They crossed frozen wastelands and burning deserts. They built shelters against the cold and weapons against the predators. Archon waved a dismissive hand. "Many species overcome their environments. This proves nothing." "I am not finished," said. "There is something else, something we have never encountered before." She changed the display. Now it showed human history, wars, endless wars, armies clashing with swords and spears, ships firing cannons at each other, soldiers crawling through mud and barbed wire, bombs falling on cities, mushroom clouds rising over devastated landscapes. "The humans have been at war with each other for their entire recorded history," explained. "They have fought over land, over resources, over ideas, over religion. They have developed thousands of ways to kill, chemical weapons that melt flesh, diseases designed in laboratories, bombs that can destroy entire cities in a single flash." She paused, letting the council absorb this information. "When we sent our conquest fleet, we expected them to unite in fear. We expected them to argue and delay and eventually surrender, but they did not. They united in anger instead, and they were ready." "Ready?" Leaned forward. "How could they be ready? They had only one planetary rotation." Pulled up tactical data from the battle. They had hidden weapons throughout their planet, in the oceans, in the mountains, underground. They had plans for this scenario. They had practiced for this scenario. The humans have been expecting an alien invasion for generations. They have written stories about it, made entertainment about it. They have imagined every possible attack and developed responses. She showed them footage from the battle. Human ships diving into formations, exploding on impact, their pilots choosing death to take enemies with them. Ground-based weapons rising from hidden silos. Civilian vessels retrofitted with military hardware in a matter of hours. They converted their entire civilization to war footing in less than a day, concluded. And they did it willingly, eagerly, almost as if they had been waiting for someone to give them a reason to stop fighting each other and start fighting together. The chamber was silent. Then Archon spoke, his voice tight with something that might have been fear. "What do you recommend?" "I recommend caution," answered. "These are not like any species we have conquered before. They are predators who evolved fighting predators. They are warriors who have spent perfecting the art of killing, and now they are united against a common enemy." She looked directly at High Archon. "I recommend we negotiate." His eyes flashed with cold light. "The Dominion does not negotiate with primitives. We do not show weakness. We do not retreat." He stood, his crystalline form towering over the others. "We crush them. We have conquered species far more advanced than these humans. We will simply use more force." He raised his hand, and a hologram of the Dominion's full war fleet appeared. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands, more firepower than most species could imagine. "We will mobilize everything," declared. "We will surround their pathetic little world with so many ships that they will blot out the stars. We will burn their colonies. We will shatter their moons. We will show them what true power looks like." The War Council nodded in agreement. They had conquered the galaxy this way. They would conquer these humans the same way. Only remained troubled. She had seen something in the human faces during the battle footage, something that worried her more than their weapons or their tactics. She had seen joy. The human pilots had been smiling as they died. They had been laughing as they dove into enemy fire. They had found something they had been missing for a long time. A worthy enemy. Back on Earth, Admiral Wei stood in the command center of the United Earth Defense Coalition. The celebrations had been brief. Everyone knew this was only the beginning. The Dominion would return with more ships, more weapons, more everything. But something had changed, something fundamental. For the first time in human history, there were no more borders, no more nations fighting nations, no more political squabbles or territorial disputes. The flags that had divided humanity for centuries now flew together. The soldiers who had once aimed weapons at each other now trained side by side. They had given humanity an incredible gift without meaning to. They had given them unity. Wei looked at the reports coming in from around the world, factories converting to military production, scientists sharing research across all borders, volunteers flooding recruitment centers in numbers that overwhelmed the processing systems. People who had spent their lives as rivals were now brothers and sisters in arms. The old hatred seemed small and foolish now that everyone knew what was really out there. She smiled grimly. The Dominion thought they were facing 8 billion frightened primitives. They had no idea what they had awakened. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for longer than they knew. Every war they had ever fought, every weapon they had ever built, every nightmare they had ever imagined. It had all been practice. Now the real test was coming. And humanity was ready to show the galaxy exactly what they were capable of. Wei opened a channel to all human forces, military and civilian alike. This is Admiral Wei. The enemy will return. They will come with more ships and more weapons than before. They will try to break us. She paused. But we are not the ones who will break. We have been fighting since we climbed down from the trees. We have been surviving since we crawled out of the caves. This is what we do. This is what we are. And now, finally, we have a fight worth winning. She took a deep breath. Prepare for war. The Dominion War Armada arrived at Earth 6 months after the first battle. 10,000 ships darkened the sky. They formed a sphere around the entire solar system, blocking out the stars themselves. No human vessel could escape. No signal could pass through their communication jammers. High Archon watched from his flagship, the Divine Judgment, as his forces moved into position. This time there would be no retreat. This time there would be no survivors. Begin the attack, he ordered. The first wave struck the human colonies on Mars, the expected quick victory. Instead, they found bunkers buried deep beneath the red soil. They found tunnels that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. They found humans who refused to die. Every building was a fortress. Every civilian was a soldier. The Martian colonists had spent 6 months preparing for this moment. They had mined their own streets. They had booby-trapped their own homes. They had taught their children how to use weapons. The ground forces pushed forward, taking terrible losses for every meter of ground. Their superior technology meant nothing in close combat against enemies who knew every corner, every shadow, every hiding place. After 2 weeks, Mars still had not fallen. Ordered biological weapons deployed. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds with tailored viruses that killed only the target species. Human biology was simple. Destroying them should be easy. The viruses were released. Humans began dying by the thousands. Then something happened that had never happened before. The humans adapted. Their scientists, working in underground laboratories while bombs fell overhead, analyzed the virus. They developed a vaccine in 11 days. They manufactured it in 20. They distributed it to every human in the solar system within a month. The virus stopped killing, stared at the reports in disbelief. This was impossible. The people had taken 300 years to develop resistance to Dominion biological weapons. The humans had done it in weeks. He ordered a new virus released. The humans countered it in 9 days. He ordered another. They countered it in 6. Finally, the human scientists did something no other species had ever done. They captured a sample of the genome and created a virus specifically designed to target it. Then they loaded that virus into missiles and fired it at the Dominion fleet. Soldiers began dying. For the first time in 11,000 years, the conquerors had become the target. His biological warfare division and swore never to use such weapons against humans again. They learned too fast. They improved too quickly. Whatever weapon was used against them became a weapon they could use against you. The war ground on. The Dominion's greatest advantage had always been coordination. Their fleets moved as one, controlled by central commanders who issued orders that were followed without question. Every soldier knew their place. Every ship knew its role. The humans had no such coordination. Their fleets were chaos. Ships from different nations used different communication systems. Commanders argued with each other in the middle of battles. Sometimes human ships accidentally fired on each other. They exploited this weakness, targeting human command vessels, killing their admirals and generals. Without leaders, the human forces should have collapsed. They did not. When a human commander died, another human simply took their place. When communication systems failed, human ships continued fighting on their own initiative. Every single human seemed capable of making decisions, of leading, of fighting without orders. There was no head to cut off. There was no heart to pierce. The human military was not an organism. It was a swarm. The young scholar presented her latest findings to the War Council. They call it initiative, she explained. It is a human concept. Their soldiers are trained to think for themselves, to adapt to changing situations, to continue fighting even when they have no contact with their superiors. She showed them footage of human soldiers in battle, small units surrounded and outnumbered fighting for hours with no hope of rescue. Instead of surrendering, they improvised. They used debris as weapons. They set traps. They died one by one, but they never stopped fighting. This is not logical, said Archon. Why do they not surrender? Why do they not preserve themselves? Because they value other things more than their own survival, replied. They fight for their families, their homes, their fellow soldiers. They have a saying, no man left behind. They will die to save each other. They will sacrifice everything for those they love. She pulled up another image. A human soldier, badly wounded, crawling through a battlefield to drag an unconscious companion to safety. He died from his injuries moments after reaching cover. His friends survived. We do not understand this, admitted. We preserve ourselves first. We serve the Dominion because the Dominion is strong, but humans serve each other because they choose to, because they want to. Their loyalty is not based on fear or duty. It is based on love. Dismiss this with contempt. Love is weakness. Emotion is weakness. We will break them eventually. But months passed, and the humans did not break. They lost battles, they lost ships, they lost millions of soldiers, but for every loss they seemed to grow stronger. Their weapons improved, their tactics evolved. They learned from every defeat and came back harder. And they never stopped being angry. A human general sent a transmission directly to. His name was Stone, and his face was from a dozen battles. Half his body had been replaced with mechanical parts after he had survived an explosion that killed everyone around him. You wanted to know what humans are, Stone said. I will tell you. We are the species that hunted mammoths with pointed sticks. We are the species that walked out of Africa and conquered every corner of our world. We are the species that survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. He leaned closer to the camera. We are the species that looked at the atom and thought, how can we make this into a weapon? We are the species that went to our moon not because it was easy, but because it was hard. We do not know how to give up. We do not know how to stay down. Every time we fall, we get back up. Every time we lose, we learn. Every time you hurt us, we remember. His eyes were cold and hard. You have been conquering the galaxy for 11,000 years. You think you know war, but you have never fought anyone like us. We have been practicing on each other since before your dominion existed. We have been sharpening ourselves against ourselves, generation after generation, getting stronger and smarter and more dangerous. He smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You wanted war with humans. Congratulations. You got one. Now you get to find out what that means. The transmission ended. Sat in silence for a long time. For the first time in 9,000 years, he felt something he did not recognize. It took him a while to realize it was doubt. 3 years into the war, the Dominion controlled less territory than when they started. It had begun slowly. A supply convoy ambushed here, a patrol destroyed there. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck fast, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They called these attacks guerrilla warfare, a concept so foreign to the Dominion that they had no word for it in their language. Then the humans began doing something even more unexpected. They started making friends. The Dominion had conquered thousands of species over 11,000 years. Most of these species were still alive, serving as slaves and laborers throughout the empire. They had long ago accepted their place. They had long ago forgotten how to fight. The humans reminded them. Small teams of human soldiers infiltrated Dominion worlds. They made contact with the subjugated populations. They did not come with weapons. They came with words. You do not have to live like this, they said. You do not have to serve them. You were free once. You can be free again. At first, few listened. The Dominion was too powerful. Rebellion was suicide. But the humans told them stories. Stories of Earth's own history. Stories of slaves who had risen up against their masters. Stories of small nations that had defeated great empires. Stories of ordinary people who had changed the course of history. And they told them about the war. The Dominion is losing, they said. For the first time in 11,000 years, someone is fighting back and winning. Join us. Help us. And when the Dominion falls, you will be free. The first rebellions were small. A mining colony that refused to work. A factory that sabotaged its own production. A military unit that turned their weapons on their officers. Then they grew larger. The people, who had served as laborers for 8,000 years, rose up on 17 worlds simultaneously. They had been planning in secret for months, using human communication techniques to coordinate across vast distances. In a single night, they seized control of their own cities and declared independence. The Dominion sent fleets to crush them, but while those fleets were away, other rebellions began. The species that had been conquered so long ago that the Dominion had forgotten they were ever dangerous. They remembered now. The humans were everywhere, spreading like a virus through the empire. Not conquering, but teaching. They trained rebel soldiers. They provided weapons captured from forces. They shared tactics and strategies developed over of human warfare. And they did something else. Something that confused the Dominion more than anything else. They treated the other species as equals. They conquered because they believed they were superior. They ruled because they were strong and others were weak. The concept of different species working together as partners, as friends, was incomprehensible to them. But the humans did it naturally. They learned alien languages. They studied alien cultures. They found common ground with creatures that looked nothing like them, and they convinced those creatures that the future could be different. The fortress world of Iran, the most heavily defended position in the Outer Empire, fell without a single human ship firing a shot. Human infiltrators had spent 2 years working with the slave population, planning every detail. When the signal came, the workers simply stopped working. They blocked the corridors. They sabotaged the generators. They opened the gates. The garrison, cut off from power and supplies, surrendered in 6 days. High Archon received the news in his throne room. His empire was crumbling. His fleets were spread too thin, fighting fires on 100 fronts. Every victory against the humans created 3 new rebellions somewhere else. His advisors urged negotiation. The war was bleeding the Dominion dry. Their economy was collapsing. Their soldiers were exhausted and demoralized. Refused. "We will not negotiate with animals," he snarled. "We will not show weakness. If we must burn the galaxy to maintain our rule, then we will burn it." He ordered the deployment of the... There was a weapon of last resort. It had been used only 3 times in Dominion history, each time against enemies so dangerous that no other option remained. It was a device capable of destabilizing a star, triggering a supernova that would sterilize an entire solar system. Would destroy Earth's sun. Without there, the humans would be scattered and broken. Their alien allies would see that defiance was futile. The rebellions would end. Order would be restored. That was transported in secret, guarded by 100 of the Dominion's best warships. It moved through back routes, avoiding human patrols. In 2 weeks, it would reach Earth's solar system. Human intelligence discovered the plan 5 days before the weapon arrived. Admiral Wei stared at the reports, her face pale. There was no time to assemble a fleet large enough to stop the weapon. There was no defense against a supernova. Earth would die and every human on it. Unless someone stopped it before it reached them. A single ship could do it. A fast ship with a skilled pilot could intercept the weapon in transit and detonate it early, in empty space where the explosion would harm no one. But the pilot would not survive. There would be no escape. It was a suicide mission. Wei did not even need to ask for volunteers. Thousands offered their lives within hours. She chose a young pilot named Sarah. Sarah had lost her entire family in the first attack on Mumbai. She had been fighting ever since, racking up more kills than any other pilot in the fleet. She had nothing left to live for except the war. And she wanted to end it. Sarah's ship was small and fast, designed for exactly this kind of mission. She slipped through Dominion lines like a ghost, following this path. Her communications were silent. Her engines ran cold. She was invisible. She found the weapon 3 days later, surrounded by its escort fleet. 100 warships, each one capable of destroying her in seconds. She did not hesitate. Sarah accelerated to maximum speed and dove straight into the formation. Alarms screamed on 100 bridges. Weapons turned toward her, but she was too fast, too unpredictable. She wove through the formation like water through fingers. The loomed ahead, massive, terrible, the death of her world. Sarah activated her weapons and fired everything she had directly into the device's core. The explosion was visible across 3 sectors. The detonated in empty space, its terrible energy consuming nothing but itself and its escorts. 70 warships vanished in an instant. Sarah's final transmission was broadcast across the galaxy, picked up by human forces and rebel allies, and even Dominion listening posts. "This is Lieutenant Sarah of the United Earth Defense Coalition. I am about to die, but I want you to know something. This is what humans do. We die so others do not have to. We sacrifice ourselves for people we have never met. Can your Dominion say the same?" Then there was only static. That night, rebellions erupted on 40 more worlds. The Dominion had shown that it was willing to destroy entire solar systems to maintain control. The subjugated species finally understood that there could be no accommodation with such masters. There could only be freedom or death. They chose freedom. And they chose to fight alongside the humans who had shown them it was possible. The war ended not with a great battle, but with a slow collapse. The Dominion had ruled through fear and strength for 11,000 years. When both began to fail, there was nothing left to hold the empire together. Supply lines fell apart. Factories stopped producing. Ships ran out of fuel and drifted in empty space. Soldiers who had never questioned orders began to wonder why they were fighting. The crystalline warships, once symbols of unstoppable power, became scattered and alone. One by one, Dominion worlds went silent. Some fell to rebellions. Some simply stopped responding to commands. Some were abandoned by their garrisons, who saw no point in dying for an empire that was already dead. High Archon retreated to the ancient heart of the Dominion. Here, in the first city his ancestors had built 9,000 years ago, he gathered the last of his loyal forces, 3,000 ships, a fraction of what he had once commanded, but still enough to make a stand. He would not surrender. He would not negotiate. He would die as he had lived, unconquered and unbroken. The human and allied fleet arrived 2 months later. 15,000 ships from 100 different species, united under a single purpose. They surrounded the like a net closing around a dying fish. Admiral Wei commanded the combined fleet from her flagship, the Sarah, named in honor of the pilot who had saved Earth. She studied the Dominion positions and felt something unexpected. Pity. She opened a communication channel to the High Archon. This is Admiral Wei of the Coalition of Free Species. Your empire has fallen. Your forces are defeated. Further resistance will only result in more death. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. We are offering terms. Surrender your remaining forces. Release all prisoners and slaves. Submit to trial for war crimes. In exchange, we will spare your people. The species will not be destroyed. You will not become what you made others become. The response came quickly. His face appeared on her screen, ancient and terrible. His crystalline features showed no emotion, but his voice was tight with something that might have been rage or despair. You offer us mercy, he said. We do not want your mercy. We do not need your pity. The Dominion has ruled for 11,000 years. We have conquered species beyond counting. We are the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known. You were, Wei agreed. But that time is over. The choice now is simple. Surrender and live or resist and die. There is no third option. Was silent for a long moment. Behind him, through the vast windows of his throne room, ships burned in orbit. His empire crumbled around him. Why? He asked finally. Why do you offer mercy? We tried to destroy your son. We killed millions of your people. We would have enslaved your entire species. Why do you not simply destroy us in return? Wei considered the question. Because that is not who we are, she said. We fight to survive. We fight to protect those we love. We fight because we must. But we do not fight to conquer. We do not fight to rule. And we do not fight to destroy. She leaned forward. You looked at us and saw weakness, short lives, soft bodies, constant conflict among ourselves. You thought those were flaws. They are not. They are why we fight so hard. Every moment matters to us because we have so few of them. Every loss hurts because we love each other. Every battle unites us because we know we are stronger together. You have lived for 9,000 years. You have conquered everything you touched. But you never learned the one thing that we knew from the very beginning. His eyes flickered. What is that? That the universe does not owe you survival. You have to earn it, every single day. You have to keep fighting, keep growing, keep adapting. The moment you stop, the moment you think you have won forever, that is the moment you start to die. She spread her hands. Your dominion died a long time ago. You just did not notice until now. Accept it. Let go. And maybe in time, your people can become something better than what they were. The communication ended. For a long time, sat alone in his throne room. The sounds of battle echoed in the distance. His advisors had fled or died. His guards had abandoned their posts. He was alone with 9,000 years of memories and a universe that no longer feared him. He thought about everything he had done, every world he had conquered, every species he had enslaved, every life he had ended. He had told himself it was necessary. He had told himself it was right. The strong ruled the weak. That was the natural order. But the humans had shown him a different way. They were not the strongest. They were not the oldest. But they had stood against him anyway. They had fought for each other, died for each other, sacrificed everything for people they had never met. And in the end, they had won. Not because they were more powerful. Because they cared. The surrendered that evening was taken into custody by human soldiers who treated him with a respect he had never shown his own prisoners. He was tried for war crimes before a court of 100 species. The trial lasted 3 years. In the end, he was not executed. The coalition voted to exile him instead to a quiet moon at the edge of explored space. They gave him nothing but a simple shelter and enough supplies to survive, and they gave him time. Time to think, time to understand, time to change. Spent his remaining centuries writing. He wrote histories of the Dominion, honest accounts of everything they had done. He wrote analyses of their mistakes, their arrogance, their blindness, and he wrote warnings. Warnings for any civilization that might one day encounter humanity. His final work was a single volume, translated into every known language and distributed to every corner of the galaxy. Its title was simple. Do not underestimate them. Do not threaten them. Do not assume their kindness is weakness or their mercy is fear. Do not think their short lives make them less dangerous, or their soft bodies make them fragile, or their internal conflicts make them divided. Do not start a war with humans, because they will finish it. Centuries passed, the galaxy healed, the species that had been enslaved built new civilizations, trade routes opened, knowledge was shared, the scars of the Dominion slowly faded. Humanity spread among the stars, not as conquerors but as explorers and traders and friends. They were still chaotic, still argumentative, still prone to disagreements that baffled their neighbors, but when danger threatened, they remembered who they were. And the galaxy remembered too. In the great archive of United Species, a hall was dedicated to the war and those who had fought it. Above the entrance, words were inscribed in every known language. They were not the strongest, they were not the oldest, they were not the most advanced, but when the darkness came, they were the ones who refused to yield. And beneath it, in smaller letters, a human had added one final note. Also, we make really good coffee. You should try some. Some things, it seemed, never changed. And that was exactly as it should be.